You're telling me these humans defeated the Krixthak? Ambassador Zilvara's 3 sets of compound eyes blinked rapidly in disbelief. The same Krixthak that have been terrorizing the Galactic Council for the past 3 centuries? Not just defeated, Captain Sarah Chen replied, casually sipping her coffee while lounging in a chair that was clearly designed for a being with more appendages. We made them ask for a timeout and sign up for anger management classes. Turns out, all that scary chittering was just them being hangry. The ambassador's translucent antennae twitched, the Vexitari equivalent of a jaw drop. The story of how humanity had managed to defuse the galaxy's most notorious warrior species was, well, absolutely ridiculous. And yet, here she was, sitting in a human diplomatic vessel, watching one of their military officers drink a bitter brown liquid while treating the whole situation like it was yesterday's news. The Krixthak had been the boogeyman of spacefaring civilizations since they first emerged from their home system. 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating that could deflect plasma rounds, armed with claws that could tear through battleship hulls, and possessed of a collective battle rage that made berserkers look like meditation instructors. They had conquered 12 systems, subjugated 4 species, and had never known defeat. Until they met humans. Would you mind explaining how, exactly? Zilvara asked, her translator struggling to convey the mix of skepticism and desperate curiosity in her harmonic tones. Sarah set down her coffee mug, adorned with the phrase, "World's okayest diplomat," and grinned. Well, it all started when they tried to invade Earth through Australia. As it turned out, launching a ground invasion of Earth through the Australian outback was possibly the worst tactical decision the Krixthak had made in their 1,000-year history of conquest. Their advanced scouts had determined it was the least densely populated continent with the most open space for their massive landing ships. What they hadn't counted on was that everything, and they meant everything, on that continent had evolved specifically to murder anything that moved. The first Krixthak warrior to step out of their ship had barely touched the ground when a brown snake, completely unimpressed by their legendary armor plating, found the one gap near their ankle and decided to make a point about uninvited guests. 3 more were taken out by swooping magpies before they could even raise their plasma rifles. And then there were the spiders. Oh God, the spiders. The thing about Krixthak, Sarah explained, now trying not to laugh at the memory, is that they're actually really similar to Earth arachnids in terms of basic biology, which means Australian funnel web spider venom works even better on them than it does on us. Their entire first wave was literally defeated by wildlife. Zilvara's antennae were now twisted into shapes that probably violated several laws of geometry. But they're the Krixthak. They've destroyed entire planetary defense systems. Yeah, but they'd never met a cassowary before. Did you know those birds can disembowel a fully armored warrior with 1 kick? Because the Krixthak sure found out. The second wave of the invasion had gone marginally better for the Krixthak, largely because they decided to avoid Australia entirely and tried landing in North America instead. This time, they made it about 6 hours before running into their next uniquely human problem. Florida Man. There's really no way to explain Florida Man to non-humans, Sarah mused, reaching for the coffee pot to refill her mug. It's just a thing that happens when you combine tropical weather, questionable life choices, and absolutely zero self-preservation instinct. The official after-action report, which Sarah had framed on her office wall, detailed how a single human male, armed with nothing but a lawn chair and what was described as enough beer to kill a horse, had managed to hijack one of the Krixthak's own battle mechs. He then proceeded to use it to, and this was quoted directly from the report, do sick backflips off the Tampa Bay Bridge while blasting Sweet Home Alabama through the mech's external speakers. The Krixthak, who had never encountered this level of chaos before, were completely thrown off their game. Their entire military doctrine was based on inspiring fear through displays of overwhelming force. They had no protocols for dealing with enemies who responded to their terrifying presence by saying, "Hold my beer," and treating their advanced military hardware like props for social media videos. But the real turning point came during what became known as the McDonald's incident. A Krixthak strike force had surrounded a McDonald's in suburban Ohio, expecting to find cowering humans they could take as hostages. Instead, they found the Sunday afternoon rush hour crowd, who were already angry about the ice cream machine being broken again. The resulting confrontation would later be described by xenopsychologists as a perfect storm of human customer service rage meeting alien military aggression. Karen versus Krixthak, Sarah said, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. Turns out their mighty warriors had never faced anything quite like a middle-aged human woman, demanding to speak to their supervisor about their invasion's poor timing and unprofessional behavior. The security footage, which later went viral across both human and alien social media, showed a 5'3" woman with a highlighted bob cut, reducing a 9-foot Krixthak commander to what could only be described as sheepish apologetic chirping. She had proceeded to demand compensation for her interrupted meal, a formal apology, and somehow ended up getting the alien warrior to agree to cover her next month's grocery shopping. The Krixthak High Command, watching these events unfold from their flagship, found themselves facing something they'd never encountered before. Confusion. Their species had evolved as apex predators, their entire society built around the concept of domination through superior force. But humans didn't make any sense. When faced with certain death, they made jokes. When confronted with overwhelming force, they got creative. When their civilization was threatened, they somehow managed to turn it into entertainment. The Krixthak battle rage, which had broken the will of countless species, was met with memes and TikTok challenges. "We didn't just fight them," Sarah explained to the increasingly bewildered ambassador. "We befriended them." Turns out, once you get past all the terrifying armor and battle rage, they're basically just really intense sports fans who never learned healthy ways to express their emotions. The breakthrough had come when a human anthropologist noticed similarities between Krixthak battle displays and Earth sports fan behavior. This led to what might have been the most unusual peace negotiation in galactic history, the Great Tailgate Summit. Instead of formal diplomatic talks, humanity invited the entire Krixthak High Command to a combination Super Bowl party and barbecue. The warriors who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries found themselves learning about chicken wings, face paint, and the complex social rituals of pre-game celebrations. "Funny thing about a species evolved for combat, they make amazing football players," Sarah added. The Krixthak Professional Football League is now the most watched sport in 3 sectors, though we did have to modify the rules a bit to account for the clause. Zilvara sat in silence for a long moment, processing everything she'd heard. "So you're telling me," she finally said, "that humanity defeated the most feared species in known space with wildlife, chaos, customer service complaints, and sports?" "Pretty much," Sarah nodded. Though the barbecue sauce helped a lot too. Turns out they'd never experienced anything like Kansas City-style ribs before. Hard to maintain an empire of terror when you're too busy arguing about whether Texas or Memphis has the better barbecue technique. And now? Now we're their favorite trading partners. They've got a cultural exchange program with Australia. Turns out they really respect any place with that many lethal creatures. They've become weirdly obsessed with human cooking shows, and last month they hosted the first intergalactic tailgating championship. The Krixthak team lost to a group from Wisconsin, but they took it pretty well. Only 3 small fights broke out, and everyone agreed that's basically peaceful by both human and Krixthak standards. Sarah stood up and walked to the window, gesturing at the massive Krixthak vessel floating peacefully alongside their diplomatic ship. Its once threatening silhouette was now partially covered in bumper stickers, team logos, and what appeared to be a giant inflatable human hand making a foam finger gesture. "You know what the real secret was?" she asked, turning back to the ambassador with a smile. "We weren't afraid of them. Oh, sure, they were scary, but humans? We've got this weird ability to look at the most terrifying thing in the universe and think, I bet I could pet that, or I wonder what that tastes like, or hey y'all, watch this." "That's not a survival trait," Zilvara protested. "No," Sarah agreed, "but it's a very human trait, and sometimes that's even better." As if to prove her point, the ship's comm system crackled to life. "Captain Chen, the Krixthak ambassador is asking if you're still up for the weekly poker night. They've apparently discovered something called trash talk and are very excited to try it out." Sarah grinned at Zilvara. "Tell them I'll be there, and remind them that if they try using their mandibles to hold extra cards again, I'm bringing out the spray bottle." The Vexatari ambassador watched as Sarah gathered her things, still trying to reconcile everything she'd learned. As the human captain reached the door, Zilvara called out one last question. "Captain, do you think humanity would be willing to help with some other diplomatic situations in the galaxy?" Sarah's grin widened. "Ambassador, if there's one thing humans love more than turning fearsome aliens into friends, it's showing off how we did it. Send me the details. I'll bring the beer and barbecue sauce." As she watched the human captain leave, Zilvara couldn't help but think that perhaps the galaxy's diplomatic corps needed a little more chaos in their lives. After all, if it worked on the Krixthak, She reached for her communicator, already composing a message to the Galactic Council. The subject line read, Re-Diplomatic Initiative Proposal, Operation Hold My Beer. The galaxy would never be the same again, and somehow that seemed like exactly what it needed. So, let me get this straight. Admiral Jenkins pinched the bridge of his nose, staring at the holoscreen displaying Captain Sarah Chen's proposal. You want to apply the Australian method to the entire Galactic Council's diplomatic corps? Well, not the actual Australian wildlife part, Sarah clarified, lounging in her chair with her ever-present coffee mug. Though I did consider introducing the Zentari Empire to cassowaries, might humble them a bit. The Admiral's office aboard the Terran diplomatic station, Let's Talk About It, was filled with artifacts from humanity's various first contact scenarios. Pride of place went to a mounted Crixthack battle claw, now repurposed as a bottle opener, a gift from their former enemies after a particularly rowdy Super Bowl party. The Zentari are threatening to blockade 3 major trade routes, Jenkins reminded her. They've got the largest fleet in the sector, and their emperor makes the old Crixthack look positively cuddly. Exactly, Sarah's eyes lit up. They're just like the Crixthack, all scary on the outside, but nobody's ever tried inviting them to a tailgate party. Did you know they don't even have comfort food? 17,000 years of civilization, and they never invented the chocolate chip cookie. That's just sad. Before the Admiral could respond, a new alert flashed across his screen. The Vextri ambassador, Zilvara, was requesting immediate docking clearance. Her message contained only 3 words. It's getting worse. The situation, as it turned out, was indeed getting worse. The Zentari Emperor had declared that all lesser species needed to recognize his divine right to rule or face annihilation. He'd already demonstrated his seriousness by obliterating an uninhabited moon, mostly because the Zentari believed dramatic gestures should always involve explosions. Classic overcompensation, Sarah muttered, watching the footage. Bet you anything he's insecure about his crown size. Zilvara's antennae twitched in what humans had learned was her equivalent of an eye roll. The Galactic Council is in chaos. Half want to surrender, half want to fight, and nobody has any idea how to handle this. Perfect, Sarah grinned. That's exactly where we humans do our best work. Admiral Jenkins knew that grin. It was the same one she'd worn before introducing the Crixthack to the concept of competitive eating contests. Captain, what exactly are you planning? Sir, have you ever heard of reality TV? The Zentari Emperor's personal flagship, Eternal Glory and also very big guns, received the transmission during their standard intimidation patrol. It was a challenge, but unlike any they'd received before. Greetings, O most luminous and probably compensating for something Emperor. The human woman on screen was wearing what appeared to be a garish Hawaiian shirt covered in pictures of Earth cats. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of Earth, and we'd like to invite you to participate in the first ever Galactic Cook-Off Championship. The Emperor, resplendent in his 20-foot-tall battle armor, which Sarah noted was definitely overcompensating for something, stared in confusion at the transmission. You dare mock the mighty Zentari Empire with cooking? Mock? Oh no, your most excessive shininess. This is a chance to prove Zentari superiority in the most important battlefield of all, the kitchen. Unless... Sarah paused dramatically. You're afraid your cuisine can't compete with lesser species. The Emperor's cybernetic eye twitched. The Zentari fear nothing. Prove it, Sarah challenged. 1 month. Earth. Bring your best chefs. The whole galaxy will be watching. Winner gets bragging rights and a really nice trophy. Loser has to admit they're just compensating with all the big guns and dramatic explosions. This is either brilliant or insane, Jenkins muttered, watching the preparations for what had become the most anticipated event in galactic history. Earth's largest stadium had been converted into a massive cooking arena. Representatives from 37 species were setting up their cooking stations, each adapted to their unique biology and culinary traditions. The Crixthack had shown up early, eager to defend their newly earned reputation as Galaxy-class grill masters. The Zentari delegation arrived in a ship that looked like someone had bolted every weapon in existence to a space cathedral. Their head chef emerged wearing armor that was somehow both battle-ready and food-safe, accompanied by what appeared to be a portable fusion reactor they claimed was a stove. The best part? Sarah whispered to Zilvara as they watched the contestants set up. We're broadcasting this across every network in known space. The Emperor can't back out now without losing face in front of the entire galaxy. But what does this accomplish? The ambassador asked. You've never seen what happens when you get different cultures together over food, have you? Just watch. The first round was chaos in the best possible way. The Zentari chef, attempting to demonstrate their superiority, accidentally created something that looked like a supernova in a bowl. The Crixithak team got into a heated debate with the judges about whether their signature dish counted as grilled if it was cooked using plasma weapons. But something unexpected started happening during the breaks between rounds. The Zentari chef, frustrated with a particularly difficult technique, found himself receiving advice from a Crixithak warrior who'd learned similar methods during their Earth cultural exchange. A human grandmother from Texas ended up teaching the Emperor's personal guard how to make biscuits. By the final round, the competition had evolved into something else entirely. The Zentari team had abandoned their fusion reactor in favor of an old-fashioned earth wood smoker, while the Crixithak were enthusiastically adding Zentari spices to their barbecue sauce. The Emperor, who had arrived expecting to intimidate everyone with his presence, found himself caught up in the excitement. His cybernetic monocle recorded everything, especially the techniques for making what he would later describe in his personal log as those addictive earth cookie things. And that, Sarah explained to the stunned Galactic Council 2 weeks later, is how we avoided an interstellar war with the power of competitive cooking shows. The trade route crisis had been resolved through a series of what the Emperor insisted on calling cultural exchange nutrition summits. But what everyone else knew were just really elaborate dinner parties. The Zentari fleet was still impressive, but now their ships were more likely to be carrying exotic spices than weapons of mass destruction. The Emperor has announced that his divine right to rule now includes a divine responsibility to host the best dinner parties in the galaxy, Zilvara reported, her antennae curled in amusement. He's converted 3 warships into mobile cooking schools. Humans, Admiral Jenkins sighed, though he couldn't hide his smile. Turning the galaxy's most feared empires into cooking show contestants, one species at a time. Hey, it works, Sarah shrugged. Hard to maintain an attitude of superior aloofness when you're arguing about barbecue techniques with a Crixithak, while a human grandmother criticizes your biscuit-making form. And the reality show? Highest-rated program in galactic history. We're already planning Season 2. The Emperor has demanded a baking competition this time. Apparently, he's really serious about mastering those cookies. Later that evening, aboard her ship, Sarah added another entry to her unofficial captain's log. Day 847 of Operation Hold My Beer taught the galaxy's most feared emperor how to make snickerdoodles. He cried when they came out perfectly. The Crixithak want to add hot sauce to them. The Vextari are experimenting with zero-gravity baking. Admiral Jenkins has officially given up on understanding how I do my job. She glanced out her window at the vast expanse of space, where a Zentari battleship was now broadcasting cooking tutorials on all frequencies. Sometimes I wonder what the first human explorers would think if they could see us now. They went looking for alien life expecting epic battles and profound diplomatic challenges. Instead, we're solving galactic conflicts with cooking competitions and tailgate parties. She took a sip of her coffee and smiled. Then again, maybe that's the most human solution of all. I may have made a tiny mistake, Captain Sarah Chen announced to the emergency meeting of the Human Diplomatic Corps. Her coffee mug today read questionable decision-making expert. Admiral Jenkins, who had developed a permanent eye twitch since Sarah's promotion to Chief of Unconventional Diplomatic Solutions, didn't even look up from his datapad. What did you do this time? Remember how well the cooking competition worked with the Zentari? Sarah began, trying to sound optimistic. Well, I might have suggested we could solve the Proxima border dispute with a sports tournament. The Admiral slowly raised his head. You did what? In my defense, Sarah quickly added, the Crixithak were very enthusiastic about the idea. They've already volunteered their best zero-gravity football team. Zilvara, who had somehow become humanity's unofficial voice of reason in galactic affairs, let her antennae droop in resignation. How many species are involved in this dispute again? Only 15. Sarah's cheerful tone did nothing to prevent the Admiral's eye twitch from intensifying. And they've all agreed to participate, though we might need to modify some of the events. The Zentari Emperor is still a bit sensitive about his size, so we can't include high jump. The first Galactic Olympics, now with more lasers, was either going to be the greatest diplomatic triumph in human history, or the event that finally proved why some species thought humanity was collectively insane. The location chosen was Earth's recently completed orbital sports complex, Hold My Beer Arena. The opening ceremony set the tone for the entire event. The Krixthak team entered doing backflips in their ceremonial battle armor, which they'd modified with team colors and sponsorship logos from various human snack food companies. The Zentari delegation had somehow bedazzled their entire battleship for the occasion. Is that glitter? Jenkins squinted at the massive vessel now twinkling in Earth's orbit. Apparently, the Emperor really got into human craft supplies after the baking competition, Sarah explained. He says it makes his ship look festive and intimidating. Though I think something got lost in translation when we introduced him to Pinterest. The human delegation had decided to lean fully into their reputation for chaos. Their entrance involved a synchronized space diving routine set to Sweet Home Alabama, a song that had somehow become Earth's unofficial anthem in galactic society after the Florida Man incident. The first event was zero-gravity football, a sport that had evolved from regular football mainly by removing any pretense of following Earth's gravity or physics. The human team, comprised entirely of former astronauts who'd gotten bored with regular spacewalks, faced off against the Krixthak champions. The thing about Krixthak playing sports, Sarah commented to Zilvara as they watched from the VIP observation deck, is that they've finally found a legitimate outlet for their battle rage. Though we did have to add a rule about not using their natural armor as a battering ram. The game ended in what would become known as the Great Space Spiral, when a particularly enthusiastic Krixthak defender accidentally created a localized gravity vortex with their spin move. The resulting spiral of players, ball, and what appeared to be someone's sandwich led to the first-ever zero-gravity dogpile. Point to humanity for style, the Zentari Emperor declared from his now glitter-encrusted throne. Though the Krixthak get bonus points for innovative use of gravitational physics. The swimming events had to be completely redesigned when it was discovered that several species considered liquid water to be either a luxury beverage or a mild acid. The solution, proposed by a junior human diplomat who'd had perhaps too much coffee, was to create different tracks filled with each species' preferred fluid medium. This led to the memorable moment when a human swimmer accidentally took a wrong turn and ended up in the Zentari lane, which was filled with what could only be described as spicy space juice. The resulting sprint for the decontamination shower set a new record for both speed and creative human profanity. The Krixthak, meanwhile, had developed an unexpected passion for synchronized swimming. Their routine, set to a remix of classical Earth disco music, involved formations that technically violated several laws of geometry. I'm not sure that's physically possible, Jenkins muttered, watching the performance. Best not to think too hard about it, Sarah advised. Like most things involving humans and aliens, it works better if you don't question the details. The track and field events introduced new challenges, particularly when it came to accommodating species with varying numbers of legs, appendages, or in some cases, no solid form at all. The solution came in the form of what Sarah proudly called the Everything Goes Dash. A race where each species could use their natural abilities however they saw fit. The result was chaos in its purest form. The Zentari competitor activated their battle armor's jet boosters. The Krixthak alternated between running and using their claws to vault forward, and the human representative, well, did he just use a makeshift slingshot to launch himself across the finish line? Zilvara asked in disbelief. Florida Man strikes again, Sarah nodded proudly. Though I think technically he's from Texas this time. The closing ceremony was marked by what would later be described in official records as a celebration of interspecies cooperation and shared athletic spirit. But what was actually closer to the galaxy's biggest tailgate party? The Zentari Emperor, now sporting a foam finger on each of his armor's 6 arms, had declared the entire event most glorious and surprisingly only partially catastrophic. The Krixthak team had somehow merged their traditional victory chants with human stadium waves, creating what witnesses described as a cross between a war cry and the world's most aggressive Mexican wave. Several smaller species had to be rescued from the resulting sound waves. You know what the best part is? Sarah said to Jenkins as they watched the celebrations. Everyone was so focused on winning medals and arguing about sports rules that they completely forgot about the border dispute. The Admiral blinked. The entire dispute? Resolved, Sarah beamed. They're converting the contested regions into neutral zones for future sporting events. The Zentari are already planning to build a giant stadium shaped like their emperor's crown, with extra glitter, of course. And the Krixthak? They're opening a chain of sports bars, though we might need to work on their understanding of friendly competition. They keep trying to add battle axes to the pool tables. Later, as the various delegations prepared to depart, Zilvara found Sarah in her office, already working on proposals for next year's games. You planned this all along, didn't you? the ambassador asked. Using humanity's love of sports and competition to create common ground? Sarah looked up from her tablet, where she was reviewing suggestions for new events. Someone had proposed combining roller derby with zero-gravity laser tag. Let's just say I had a hunch. Nothing brings people together quite like the shared experience of watching someone try something incredibly stupid and somehow succeed. Is that the secret to human diplomacy? Controlled chaos? That implies we can control it, Sarah laughed. We just embrace it and trust that somewhere in all the madness, people will find ways to connect. Usually over food, sports, or shared disbelief at whatever Florida man does next. She glanced at her latest report to Earth's diplomatic corps, which began, Operation Hold My Beer continues to exceed expectations, requesting additional funding for next year's events, including insurance for whatever the Crixthack idea of extreme curling turns out to be. In the years that followed, the Galactic Olympics became the most anticipated event in known space. The Zentari Emperor's passion for craft supplies led to what historians would call the Great Glitter Revolution, transforming their fearsome empire into the galaxy's leading producer of decorative materials. The Crixthack established the universe's first combination sports academy and culinary institute. And humanity? They continued doing what they did best, turning potential conflicts into opportunities for what they called cultural exchange, but what everyone else recognized as organized chaos with metals. As Sarah Chen would later write in her memoirs. In the end, we didn't conquer the galaxy with superior technology or military might. We did it with tailgate parties, cooking shows, and the shared universal experience of watching someone say, "Hey, watch this," right before either brilliant success or spectacular failure. And somehow, that turned out to be exactly what the galaxy needed. Captain Chen, please tell me you're joking. Admiral Jenkins stared at the proposal on his holoscreen with the weary resignation of a man who knew she absolutely wasn't joking. The Galactic Olympics were such a success, Sarah protested, her latest coffee mug sporting the phrase, ideas that seemed good at the time. And everyone knows the next logical step after sports is a galaxy-wide battle of the bands, Jenkins finished, rubbing his temples. We're calling it Eurovision Space Edition, Sarah beamed. The Crixthack have already formed 3 metal bands, and you won't believe what the Zentari Emperor did with his throne room. Zilvara, who had learned to arrive at these meetings prepared for the worst, raised all 3 sets of her compound eyes from her data pad. He turned it into a concert hall, didn't he? Complete with disco balls, though he's still insisting on calling them spheres of luminous imperial glory. And wait until you see what he did with the glitter this time. The problem had started, as most galactic problems seem to these days, with a human introducing aliens to yet another aspect of Earth culture. In this case, a Crixthack warrior had discovered heavy metal music during their regular cultural exchange program. The result was exactly what you'd expect when you introduced a species of battle-hardened warriors to music specifically designed to be as intense as possible. Within weeks, the Crixthack had essentially reinvented thrash metal, but with the addition of their natural ability to produce subsonic frequencies that could literally shake buildings. Not to be outdone, the Zentari Emperor had become fascinated with Earth's electronic dance music scene. His latest diplomatic transmission had included what he called an imperial bass drop that had accidentally triggered seismic sensors on 3 planets. So your solution, Jenkins said slowly, is to channel all of this into an organized competition? Better than letting them figure it out on their own, Sarah pointed out. The Crixthack already broke 3 moons trying to perfect their guitar solos. The first Galactic Eurovision, now with more bass, was held in the newly constructed Harmony or something like it arena, which had been specifically designed to withstand everything from Crixthack death metal to whatever genre you'd call what happened when the Zentari Emperor discovered autotune. The opening ceremony set new records for both decibel levels and creative use of pyrotechnics. The Crixthack delegation arrived in what appeared to be a combination of their traditional battle armor and 1980s glam rock fashion. The effect was somewhere between terrifying and fabulous. Are those platform battle boots? Zilvara asked, her antennae vibrating in time with the bass. They've really embraced the whole rock warrior aesthetic, Sarah nodded approvingly. Though we did have to explain that the term hair metal doesn't actually require you to make your instruments out of hair. The Zentari Emperor had outdone himself this time. His entire flagship had been converted into what he called a mobile imperial rave station, complete with enough strobe lights to be visible from 3 systems away. The glitter content had reached levels that some scientists claimed violated the laws of physics. The competition began with what the program diplomatically called traditional Earth genres with alien interpretation. The Krixthak's first band, Plasma Claw Rampage, performed what they described as death metal, but with actual death metal. Their instruments were literally made from recycled battlefield debris. Their performance of Screaming into the Void, but like in a good way, became an immediate hit, particularly when the lead singer's subsonic roar accidentally created a temporary wormhole. The judges awarded extra points for interdimensional musical innovation. Not to be outdone, the Zentari Emperor himself took the stage with his new EDM project, Bass Drop Dynasty. His performance featured what he called Imperial Dubstep, which combined traditional Zentari war hymns with enough bass to make subatomic particles dance. "Is it supposed to make colors I've never seen before?" Jenkins asked, watching the performance through specially designed protective eyewear. "Just go with it," Sarah advised. "Like most things involving humans and aliens making music together, it works better if you don't think too hard about the physics involved." The human entries ran the full spectrum from a country western band that had somehow taught the Krixthak to line dance, their claws were surprisingly good for boot scooting, to a jazz fusion group that had incorporated the natural harmonics of Zentari battle cries into their arrangements. But the surprise hit of the festival came from an unexpected collaboration. A Krixthak human Zentari supergroup called Three Species and the Sonic Boom. Their fusion of metal, EDM, and what appeared to be polka broke every known law of musicology, but somehow worked. The real genius, Sarah explained to a stunned panel of judges, was realizing that Krixthak battle rage frequencies perfectly complement dubstep drops, and that you can literally use their natural armor as percussion instruments. The Zentari Emperor, who had switched his glitter-encrusted battle armor for what appeared to be a combination of royal regalia and a DJ's outfit, had declared the whole event most harmonious and, surprisingly only partially, reality-bending. The closing ceremony turned into what official records would describe as a celebration of cross-species musical expression, but what was actually closer to the biggest interstellar rave in history. The Krixthak had taught everyone their version of a mosh pit, which had to be conducted in zero gravity for safety reasons. "You know what the best part is?" Sarah said to Jenkins as they watched the Zentari Emperor crowd-surfing in his anti-gravity throne. "Everyone's so busy arguing about music genres and starting fusion bands that they've completely forgotten about their traditional rivalries. The entire concept of war. Replaced with Battle of the Bands," Sarah beamed. "The Krixthak are already converting some of their warships into mobile concert venues, though we might need to work on their understanding of acoustic sets. They keep trying to use actual plasma weapons as light shows." In her office later, Sarah added another entry to her ever-growing captain's log. Day 1247 of Operation Hold My Beer. Accidentally created the galaxy's first interspecies music festival. The Krixthak have discovered punk rock, the Zentari Emperor is starting a record label, and someone taught the Vextari about yodeling. Admiral Jenkins has officially given up on understanding anything that happens in my reports. She glanced out at the stars, where the Zentari flagship was still putting on the galaxy's most elaborate light show. "Sometimes I wonder what the first human musicians would think if they could see us now. They wrote songs about space and aliens, imagining epic battles and profound encounters. Instead, we're teaching the galaxy's most feared warriors how to headbang, and helping an emperor become a DJ." She took a sip of her coffee and smiled. Then again, maybe that's the most human harmony of all. The end. Until someone discovers K-pop.